Welcome back, baseball fans, to another edition of the Rawlings MVC First Pitch. This is a special edition, and I welcome in D1Baseball.com's Joe Healy as we get ready for the postseason. We got another weekend series in the Valley and around the country, Joe, but it's kind of hard to believe that the postseason is upon us and still plenty to play for, not only in the Valley championship wise, but certainly Indiana State right there in the mix to host, and somebody else is going to try to spoil the party, right?
No doubt, best time of year. Both from a baseball standpoint, the weather's also warming up in the Valley footprint, so that's always good news. You know, it's a little bit easier to get out there and play in those types of conditions. So yeah, one more series than the Valley tournament, and the Valley is right where it tends to be. You know, it's looking at two bids. Indiana State's obviously in great shape, but we know that tournament is going to be really, really competitive. A lot of opportunity for someone else to come up and grab a bid. If I were a betting man, and I'm not, I would bet on the Valley finding a way to get two bids. Tends to more often than not. The quality of the league is obviously very, very good. The new teams to the league have added another element. I'm sure we'll talk about that as we go on here. So that's exciting in the league. So I'm really looking forward to it, watching it from afar. But this tournament is always fun, always gives us surprises. So I'm excited to see it.
No doubt. And the way the schedule has worked out, everybody this weekend can supplant the other if things go just right in the standings. So Valley schedule makers can take a bow there too. All right, we welcome in our first coach from Belmont, their first year in the Missouri Valley Conference. Dave Jarvis has the Bruins at 8-16, and we welcome him in after the Valpo series. And Coach, you take advantage of a little bit of charity in that Sunday game. The hitting wasn't quite where you wanted it, but the final result was. Take us through the Valpo series, if you would.
Well, it was just such a competitive series. I mean, Valpo's a very, very good team, well coached. Really like the job that they do with the program, and Brian does it. Just an outstanding coach, but really competitive, very even teams. I felt like going through it. The first game of the series, they were able to get out and get away from us. Second game, we did the same thing to them and kind of got rolling offensively. And then the third game, we had no hits through the first 5 innings of the ball game. And then once we were able to start get into their bullpen a little bit, we were able to get off rolling offensively, and then our bullpen did an outstanding job of coming in and closing the door and helping us secure the win.
I wanted to ask you on the mound, Andy Bean has gone short in his last couple of starts. I wanted to ask you where he is in terms of, this being a long season. We're getting to the end of it here. And then how important is having him, healthy, ready to go as a tent pole in that rotation moving forward?
That was, yes. Yeah. Yesterday, he had been battling a pulled oblique muscle on his glove side. He suffered that just about a month ago, a little over a month ago over at Missouri State. And that short, I think we were maybe up 2-1, or it was a 1-1 ball game when he went down over there on that Thursday morning, and had been out since then. So he'd only thrown one bullpen last week on Tuesday. So we were holding him back until Sunday just to give him as much rest from the bullpen as we possibly could. So to see him go out and give us 4 innings, only give up 1 run in the first inning, that was a tremendous shot in the arm for our team mentally. And Andy's a gifted pitcher. He does a tremendous job for us, and it means a lot to our program and to our kids to hopefully have him back healthy now, heading down this stretch into a very important conference series this weekend at Bradley, and then hopefully the tournament after that.
You're nearing the end of your first go round in the Missouri Valley Conference. I'm curious for your takeaways kind of on maybe some things that you knew how competitive the league was going to be, but are there things that maybe you've learned since you've now been through the league one time?
Well, I have not a lot of surprises, I've had the good fortune of competing against each one of these teams that are in the league, both the new members and the returning members in the league. And so knew what a great group of coaches it was and how well those programs are run. Also knew that the travel was going to be a little bit more challenging than our previous league. having been to all of these places where the Missouri Valley schools are located. But I grew up over in Southeast Missouri and was very familiar with the Missouri Valley Conference in all sports and what a tremendous league it was and how competitive and well run it was. So in that regard, it hasn't been a lot of surprises for me. It was a lot of what I expected. And of course, the competition has been a lot of what I expected as well. Very well-run league, very well-run programs within the league. I think one of the strengths of the Missouri Valley Conference, maybe with us as an exception, is the bottom half of the league is just very strong as well. And so I think that's what drives its RPI. When you look at the success that it has, and as you mentioned earlier, the multi-bids that the league usually garners, I think that the reason for that is not only is the top half very good, but the bottom half of the league is usually very competitive as well.
Well, Coach, this weekend you have the Bradley Braves, the final regular season series of the year. Not much needs to be said to your team, does it? I mean, you hold your destiny in your own hands.
Yes. I mean, we, by being able to take care of business this past weekend, that put us in a position where we do now control our own destiny and we need to go win the series. And I think our guys are excited about that. And, we're looking forward to it. I'm excited about where we're at and the fact that as a roster, we're continuing to get a little bit more healthy each day and get people back, get them in a better place, get them physically back into a good spot. We knew going into this season that our margins were thin, that we needed to stay healthy. And we also knew that there was going to be adversity and that we were going to bump into injuries. And of course, now we're starting to work through some of that and get to the other side of it.
Coach, good luck this weekend and beyond. Good catching up with you.
You as well. Thank you so much.
No
Thanks,
problem. Coach. Speaking of the Bradley Braves, we move to Peoria. Elvis Dominguez on deck, and he has those Belmont Bruins. But first, we'll look back at the weekend series against Evansville. Last handful of years, Elvis, they are a handful when you play a West Carroll coach team. And you saw that this weekend. Just your overall reaction to this past weekend against Evansville.
Well, Shane, like you said, they're just so well balanced. They played outstanding defense. The one thing that really stands out is the fact of their clutch hitting, and has always been a key for them in all the years that we played them. And it was a very competitive series all the way through up until the eighth inning or ninth inning or eighth inning yesterday. So it was nip and tuck, and we just know that every series was important, and going into this one, it was going to take everything we had.
Last time we talked in this forum, the roundtable forum, you were talking about needing to kind of figure things out, piece things together on the mound. How would you evaluate where your team is at in terms of having found some of that and moving forward potentially not only this weekend but into the tournament?
Well, I mean, we still have some unanswered questions, and as much as I hate to say that as a coach, it's one of those things that we've had some guys make great strides. A lot of young guys make great strides, but a lot of veteran guys have really just have not produced when we needed them to. And we have some, been decimated by injuries all throughout our ball club. And I think, you'll ask any coach in this league that one of the keys is you have to stay healthy. And, we haven't been able to do that. We lost two more players this past weekend due to injuries as well. So those are things that are bound to happen. But at the same time, it's such a competitive league that you just got to grin and bear it, and you got to keep grinding. And we're still in a position we might be able to get in, but we didn't expect to be in this position, but that's a hand we're dealt, and we'll see what we got.
Offensively, two of the guys who have really been catalysts in conference play, if you look at the statistics, just in Valley play, Logan Delgado, Jackson Chatterton have been big catalysts there to go along with Ryan Vogel, who I asked you about last time we chatted. How big have those two guys been in terms of lengthening the lineup a little bit?
Well, a lot. And, Logan's been hurt, so he's basically been, relegated to DH and so forth, but he's a tremendous catcher back there. We haven't been able to have him for the majority of the part of the year. But Chatty, he started out playing left field for us. He's just been unbelievable. He's a great utility guy, played left field, has been playing second because our second baseman went down. Then we had to move him to third this past weekend because our third baseman went down. So he played the last two games. So he wears a lot of hats, and offensively he's doing a great a great job. And Ryan has just been about as steady as they come all year. Has had a tremendous year offensively for us and defensively as well. But, I go back to the fact that, not having Connor O'Brien for the last 5-6 weeks has really hurt us. And he's been, one of the premier players in this league, if not the Midwest. And just trying to find pieces to try to get us through a lot of those things.
Just talked to Belmont's head coach, Dave Jarvis, Elvis, and he clearly said, our destiny is in our own hands. If we just take care of our own business, that's all we need to concern ourselves with. You guys on the other hand need a little help, but you also have kind of your work cut out for you. And as a coach, you may not necessarily need to say how urgent this weekend is, right?
No, you're right. I mean, this is what you play for. And we put ourselves in this position, and adversity kind of teaches you a lot, that. And, we put ourselves in this position. So it's just a matter of how we respond to it. It's just part of life. And, we had a chance to take care of business this past weekend, as well as the weekend before, and so on throughout the year, where we wouldn't have to be where we're at. But, we definitely still have a chance, and therefore we have to go take care of business. We'll see how we respond.
Elvis, good catching up with you as always. Good luck this weekend and beyond, okay?
All right. Thanks, Shane. I appreciate it. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, up next, we'll go to Evansville. Wes Carroll just finished a series with the Aces against Bradley and taking 2 out of 3. And Wes, in the 8th inning on that Sunday, you got a little breathing room. And as it turns out, that was kind of the turning point in the series, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Decision to walk Eric Roberts, actually it was a smart one right there, how hot Eric's been. And for Chase just to step up in that spot, 3-2 count, got players in motion and him to connect with one. He's been stepping up in big time situations for us all year. It's kind of been our most consistent bat. And man, he can deliver when needed to get his double-digit home runs on the year. So, and you're right. I mean, we're sitting there going to Eric Roberts on the mound in a 2-run ball game, and he was tired from the weekend, how much he was on the base pass and everything, and we put ourselves in that position from a standpoint of pitching, just really fighting and clawing on Friday and Saturday versus a talented Bradley team, and just hearing Elvis kind of talk like, This conference is tough. Top to bottom is very, very competitive. And if you're telling me Bradley's in the spot that they're in and what we just competed against, the Valley's in a good place from an overall talent standpoint.
You mentioned Eric Roberts. I was actually going to ask you about him. He's a guy who, really looks the part, right? Physically, the tools, but this year offensively, he's been kind of otherworldly, especially in Valley play. Tell me a little bit about his jump this season.
Yeah, he's a physical young man, do it all. He's been our MVP. If you look at it, I've asked him to play multiple positions. He could probably drive the bus for us if we need him to. Just kind of has been that guy that just wants to leave it out on the field. His last go about it, and he found a really good path with his hands. To be short, direct, and quick. And the strength has always been there, and the pop and juice has always been there. But just the consistency of him, knowing who he is as a hitter and knowing how to, lay off pitches that gets him in trouble, but also put himself in positions just with his overall approach, just a veteran, savvy vet that's, really cashing in and having an all conference type of year, in my opinion.
How much of a luxury is it to have what you've had with Schultz and Smith in the rotation, guys who, been there, done that, and you kind of can trust to keep your team in a game throughout their starts?
Absolutely. And I think, having a 1-2 punch, it's just what has to put yourself in a position to win this league and win in the conference tournament, and just having reliable guys that, if Nick, doesn't have his stuff on Friday, we know Donnie's going to give us a chance to get back into any weekend series. And then whenever Nick's going good and then you have Donnie, you're having a chance to win series on Saturday. So just been a great 1-2 dynamic all year. Donnie was on Sunday and then kind of moved him up to Saturday a couple weeks ago. And it's just nice to be able to have reliable quality starts, I think, is what's going to put yourself in a position of success. And so, and I've really had a lot of belief. I think our bullpen's done a great job through the course of the year as well. And, having multiple guys to be able to go to instead of just one or two guys that you're kind of running to the ground, I feel like we have 4 or 5 guys that can come in and get quality outs for us.
Wes, looks to me like, in looking at your roster, it's comparable to a basketball team in March Madness in that you like for your team to be old. If you're old, you got a shot. You guys in all the right spots, it seems to me, old. And that's one less thing that you have to worry about when it comes to tournament time, right?
Absolutely. And now it's time to get hot, with your old guys and not just 1 or 2 bats. I feel like we have the capability top to bottom. It's there. I feel like there is a lot of talent. Now it's just about showing the consistency with it, with an approach, being able to handle different pitchers and their repertoire throwing at you, and just being able to go to the yard knowing, okay, I can put up 6 or 7 runs today, and be hot down the stretch. And boy, we got our hands full this weekend. A lot's on the line. It really is. UIC's put themselves in a position the last couple of weeks to sit here and strike and get in the top 4, which is very important in our conference tournament, being in the top 4 for that first round bye. And, now it's time for us to go and do what I believe we're capable of doing, and that's get hot, put ourselves in the top 4 with our pitching, with our defense, and then with a consistent, hot bat line up top to bottom to go and do something I think we're capable of doing. That's win the conference tournament.
Mentioned a little earlier, whoever made the schedule for the Missouri Valley Conference nailed it for the last weekend. Everybody that's playing their opponent has a chance to supplant the other if things go just right. And to your point, and my visit with the 2 previous coaches to you, at this point in the year and with what's on the line, you probably don't have to say much, do you?
No, especially with an older group, younger group, you probably got to let them know, or you're trying to, make sure that they're still naive about understanding the importance of everything. With an older group, everybody knows exactly what's on the line, and we're going to go and play aces baseball, hopefully play up to our capability. Really like where some of our guys are in, especially the emergence of Kip Foogers. He's really seeing the ball well, and him going along with just what our consistent bats of Roberts and Hug have been. Getting Brent Witter back in the lineup is really crucial and key. Especially getting him to play defensively. It kind of puts everybody else in their positions to be successful. So just really like where we're at as a club, kind of been up and down a little bit over the last month. But I think we all know it's time to flip the switch and get geared up to make a run that I feel like we're capable of making.
Well, good luck this weekend. We'll see you in Terre Haute, Coach.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
You bet.
Thanks,
and speaking of UIC, Sean McDermott is up next, and they have the hottest team in the Missouri Valley Conference right now, coming off a series win over Illinois State. They're 12-12 in the league, and we welcome in Sean McDermott. And take us through not only the weekend series with Illinois State, but into last week, because you guys, like I said, going about as good as anybody in the league has been.
Yeah, well, we're playing good at the right time, right? And we withstood a bunch of injuries early. And we're finally getting our pitching staff in a position where we can slot people in the proper positions. And I think, the ERA is a little inflated. We had to extend guys out because we just didn't have the numbers. And so guys took a beating early, and it's been nice to see. We've handled 2 series really well and just played good, clean baseball and scored runs. And we've been able to win, by scoring a bunch of runs, and we've been able to win, tight games as well. So it's been nice to see our guys mature and just keep playing baseball.
Tell us a little bit about Charlie Zacconi, a guy who the numbers obviously stand out, but tell us a little bit about his emergence and being the bat that he's been for you guys.
Charlie's a really good player, and just a remarkable story. Kid grew up about 10 minutes away from our campus. I'd never even heard the name. He's really wasn't out on any club team that really set your, where you would go out and see him. He graduated high school at 5'10", about 170 pounds. And now he's 6'4", 220 pounds, just a late bloomer. And really a throwback. And, Charlie has been really good for us, obviously, but the thing he brings to the table most is if he's 0 for 4 and the Flames win, he's the happiest guy in the clubhouse. If he's 5 for 5 and we lose, he's he's ready to knock some heads. So it's been very, very pleasurable. His energy is infectious, his work ethic. He's in here every morning at 8 o'clock to hit on his own. And it's just been very refreshing and excited to see his success for sure.
As Shane alluded to, 3 series wins in a row for you guys. I want to dig in a little on that and ask you if certain individual players have stood out as maybe turning a corner, whether it's getting healthy or just maybe taking a jump in their development that it's allowed you to get into this position.
Yeah, I think the getting Reese Lawler coming off surgery and it took him a while to get back, and having him at the back end has really enabled us to shorten some games and not rely on somebody at the end that's probably not ready for that role. And he's been great for us at the back end. And that's really a sigh of relief for us when you know you have that at the back end. And I think it's allowed our middle relievers, whether it's Zach Gould or Peter Newton, who've both done an unbelievable job for us in the middle relief roles, to get to a point where we can get them out of there and not have to overextend them. And so I think that's been a boost for their confidence as well. And then I just think, Charlie's been great. But we're playing as a team, and we really want to represent the city of Chicago. We really want to be blue collar in our efforts, and there's really no effort that's bigger than the other. It's just that particular moment. And obviously Ryan Nagelbach was huge for us this weekend with 4 home runs, and we have that ability up and down the lineup, and it was getting our guys to believe and just doing their job. And good things happen. And I think we've been able to string together at bats and throw strikes and play great defense, which we take a lot of pride in our defense, and we've been able to do that.
Funny you bring that up. I was going to mention pitchers at a point in the series are going to get tired of pitching to Zaccone. And that happened in the 3rd game against Illinois State. But when you get somebody like Nagelbach and those guys that kind of pick up the baton and take up the slack, then there's not as much pressure when everybody's feeling good about themselves up there, right?
Charlie, he wanted to be the guy early, and I think he will even tell you he probably wanted to hit too much early in the season, where people were trying to pitch around him, and he was allowing that to happen. So he would swing out of the zone and really chase, and people are going to attack him differently, and he's willing to get hit by pitches. He's willing to take his walks now. And if we can have somebody behind him that gives us a good at bat, and Rafe Peterson's done a really good job protecting him and come up with some really good RBIs after a walk or an intentional walk. So it's been great to see, us be able to protect him both in the front end and the back end.
Well, a tough weekend series against Evansville, and then on to the conference tournament. Congratulations on your success so far, Coach, and stay hot, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right. And coming up next, speaking of Illinois State, we go to Normal and talk to Steve Holm after that rough series against the red-hot UIC Flames. We bring in Steve Holm, who, with a series win this weekend and things break just right, you get hot at the right time, you crash the party at Terre Haute. Take us back to the UIC series as you saw it, Coach.
So we obviously they got to us in the first inning multiple times, the first 2 games, and we probably have the youngest team in the league by far, and they might be the most talented offensive guys, but they're extremely young, and we've had a hard time, and I know this is true for all young teams, but they're very attached to the emotional roller coaster, and I've learned to live their roller coaster life, which sometimes I like and sometimes I don't, but they're momentum based, obviously, and even more so being so young. I think there's 3 freshmen, 3 sophomores in that lineup, and with that, when the other team scores first, it's hard on them, and we don't always bounce back, and so UIC did a great job, and they got to 2 of our guys that had been throwing very, very well early on, and they got to him in the first inning, both Friday and Saturday. And then our Friday guy has been going on Sunday because we needed to skip him and get a couple of bullpens in 2 weeks ago and kind of straighten out some things. And he was really good. Derek Salado was really good yesterday. And ultimately they hooked one more ball down the line that we did, and they got us 3-2.
Tell us a little bit about Augie Rasmussen and the season he's had, along with Pasella, has given you guys, a real spark in the lineup. But how big has he been for you guys this year?
Yeah, coming into this year, we really only had 2 returners on the offensive side that kind of had resume per se. And one was Greg Nichols at second base, and the other was Luke Chang, who really ultimately has kind of been out with an injury since about week 2. So we knew we were going to be extremely young. We knew that offensively there was going to be some a lot of talent, but it was going to be very inexperienced. And you never know what you're getting from the JUCO guys, right? Everyone says you usually get one good year out of them. They either get drafted their junior year or they aren't very good their junior year, and you get them back for their senior year when they are good. And Augie's come in, and I think we had him leading off at the beginning, and then we moved him around a little bit, and he's really settled into the 2-hole. But he's been that guy that he will be our leader next year. I know it's hard to be a leader when you're brand new to the program, but he's got those attributes. He's actually getting married this summer, so he's a little bit different profile than the normal college student. And so he's a very good mentor for some of those young guys, and I think you'll see him take that step forward. And then Dan Pasella obviously has been an animal since we knew it within 2-3 weeks of fall ball starting, and you're like, holy cow, this guy's going to be really good. He's played beyond his years. Came in as a first baseman, moved to left due to defensive ability, and we put him out there right away, and he did a really good job. That's kind of why Kubo, our 5'5" Hawaiian, has been playing first base. Like, I am smart enough to know that the profile of Dan Pasella should be at first, but it was necessary for Dan to flourish offensively, as well as moving into the outfield and kind of taking the pressure off of the infield side. So Dan's been fantastic.
So on the mound, Elijah Dale is electric. How important has he been, not just because he's been effective, but to have someone at the back end who can get swing and miss? Because in these games, when the bases get crowded and you get dirty innings, like, having someone that has that kind of swing and miss is just such a valuable thing to have.
Yeah, I mean, college baseball is usually lost more often than you win games. The other team will lose it, and a lot of that is pressure on the defense late, right? I don't think there's any team out in the country, the number one team, whoever that number one team is, doesn't necessarily want 3 balls put into play at the end of the game with a 3-2 ball game. You got to make the throw across a diamond. So striking guys out is obviously very important, even in the big leagues late in the game. And I think Eli Dale has come in and been able to kind of right the ship for us sometimes. Like, there's some traffic on, and that slider is up to 85 miles an hour, and it's, spinning at 3,200, and it's elite breaking ball. And, we got him off the portal. We saw it. We recruited him as a shortstop in high school, and he ultimately chose Kansas State and went there, and they flipped him to a pitcher, and we saw the slider and took the gamble that we could get him in the zone. And he certainly has, made a lot of progress. It's a guy, I think he threw 15 innings total at Kansas State before he got here. And he's been, extremely valuable for us.
Coach, you got Valpo, and then perhaps onto the conference tournament. You mentioned the inexperience that you guys are going through, and you personally are going through. You've been there, done that. You walked the walk. You've made it all the way from high school all the way to big leagues. How much have you had to, hey, let me be your experience, coach them up that way? Like, I know what I see in you. Now you just go out there and do it and trust it.
We've done quite a bit of that. But ultimately a lot of these guys are in, you can't walk up there and hit for them, and that's the part that if you go back and look at Dan Pasella, who's, arguably as good of any prospect as there is in our league, his first 100 at bats, he swung probably 300 times at a breaking ball in the dirt. And he kept asking me, like, coach, what do you see? I go, you're going to have to stop swinging at it. It ain't me. Like, we can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but experience obviously overrides any coaching. And the best coach in the game is to play. And, he got those 100 at bats. If you look at Augie Rasmussen, who you guys already mentioned, at 100 at bats, he's hitting like 260. Somewhere around 100 at bats in college baseball, kids start to go. When I signed professionally, they said, hey, give it, if you can get 2,000 at bats, you're probably going to be knocking on the door in the big leagues. And you go back and look, and somewhere around 1,500 to 2,300 at bats. Most of those guys get to the big leagues. And that's, in college baseball, you got to give them 100 at bats. And we knew what we were doing. We knew the obstacles we're up against this year because we were going to give those guys, 100 at bats, and probably have to look at the game like that a few times. And, but, I love the way it's going. We basically are returning every single guy. And, you kind of have to sometimes take a step back to go too forward.
Good catching up with you, Coach. Best of luck this weekend against Valpo.
Thanks, guys.
You bet. All right, coming up next, we'll go to Terre Haute, talk to Indiana State head man Mitch Hannes. They took 2 out of 3 from Murray State in a gigantic series coming up this weekend against Missouri State. And no, I don't have to tell you, Coach, that to look in the rearview mirror, no big surprise who's back there, right?
Sure. No, you don't have to say anything to me about that.
So give us a little bit of an overview of the weekend series against Murray. Overall, really good pitching on Saturday and Sunday, but Murray got you on Friday.
Yeah. Murray's they're a good offense. They swing the bats, very well coached. We didn't throw very many quality pitches Friday night, and they made us pay. But then Saturday, Connor Finlong threw extremely well again for us in the 5-0 shutout. And then Sunday, our staff was pretty good as well. We gave up a 2-run homer, but other than that, we pretty much kept traffic off the bases.
There's, to have the kind of season that you guys have had so far, there's kind of 2 pieces. There's obviously the talent piece, but there's also a mentality piece, just to be as consistent as your team has been weekend after weekend. Was there a point during the season, or perhaps in the preseason even, where you realized that the team would have the mentality piece of the equation in addition to the talent?
That's one that kind of plays itself out over time. I think you hope every year you go in with the right mentality, but you don't know until you get knocked down a couple of times and see what you have, how resilient your guys are. I wish that was something we could coach in them every year, but each group is different. And I think it helps. You're a lot tougher when you throw strikes and you catch it every day. And I think that's what we've done really well. Our staff has done a really good job of pounding the zone. Our defense has been excellent. I look at those numbers and they don't tell the story of really how good our defense has been. If you guys have seen the videos of our club, the ranging plays on the infield, the ranging plays in the outfield, guys running into walls. I just really proud of the way our defense has come along with our pitching staff.
On the mound, obviously a incredible 1-2 with Jacek and Finlong and what they've given you this year. It's a pretty broad question, but have you ever had a 1-2 that you've been able to bank on quite in the same way that you have? Because it's not just that the quality of it, but it's that, I mean, you're not shocked anymore when those guys give you 9 at this point, I have to imagine.
I don't think we've had that in the time that I've been here. It seems like we've always had the question, and it's not a good place to be. Do you throw off Friday night because you really don't have a true Friday guy, and then we've done that before, and then need to win those next 2 games. And that's not a fun way to attack a weekend, but sometimes by necessity, if you don't have a Friday night guy, you have to operate that way. The good thing this year is that Jacek is really solid that first game. And I've almost felt like we've gotten better than as the weekend has gone with our starts on the mound. So that, and that has to do with obviously moving Connor Finlong from the backside to a starting role, and then the emergence of Lane Miller giving us quality starts in that 3 spot. But I don't think in the time I've been here, we've had as consistent a 1-2 as we've had this year. And those are guys that the thing I like about those guys, and I always talk about this, it's great to do it in the regular season, but you get to the postseason and a regional and that plate shrinks up, and to have 2 guys that can throw to the tight plate, we haven't had that at any time that I've been here other than Guerrero. It seems like when that plate has shrunk to a championship plate, we've struggled to get outs. And these 2 guys, I have a lot of respect for their ability to attack the white part of the plate.
It's interesting you bring up the postseason because I'm sure it's hard to avoid the R word with your RPI. Regional is looming. How do you keep these guys in the moment? I would imagine over the last 30 games, it's been pretty easy. Been 27-3, so the results have been there then.
It has, but I think, as a coach, you don't know what way to turn sometimes. You don't know what to talk about, what's right, what's wrong. I think after Murray stuck it to us Friday night, just to tell our guys, hey, we're already in the postseason. You're already in tournament mode. And if you're not, you're probably going to be in trouble. So I think for us, understanding that, hey, it doesn't start in a week. It has to start before the end of the season, especially if you're in a dogfight. You mentioned Missouri State earlier to get to the end of this regular. You didn't mention, but you asked me about the rearview mirror, but I knew who you were talking about. But I think if you're in that mode and you got a chance to win a championship, you've got to lock into that a couple weeks out, and you can't hide from it. You know, you can't worry about putting pressure on your guys. It is what it is. I mean, if you're tough enough to win a championship, you are. If you're not, you're not.
You've been in this mode before, and that is hosting the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. Any perceived built-in pressure playing at home?
Yeah, Shane, everybody loses this thing at home. So I don't like hosting it. I really don't. I remember telling Hefner, hey man, it's no cup of tea when you get, and then the first year they hosted, Valpo beat them game 1. So there are a lot of distractions with hosting. I think it's easier sometimes to have your team in a hotel away from everybody, you know where they're at. They're not running around game day, running to the other games, and it's easier to focus them on the road, I think. But obviously playing on your home field is, I don't want to say it's a big advantage, maybe a very small advantage in terms of our team is built for the turf that we play on. And that turf is pretty lively. It's new. It's got a little hop to it. So with the arm strength that we have on that left side and the way we've built our club, it's 4 fast turf. So that's an advantage.
Coach, good luck this weekend. We'll see you in Terre Haute in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
You
Coach.
bet. Speaking of, coming up this weekend, Missouri State and Indiana State to wrap up the regular season. And Missouri State still has plenty in front of it. You guys control your own destiny. I'm talking about Keith Gutton, the dean of the coaches in the Missouri Valley Conference. Took 2 out of 3 at SIU. Never an easy place to win. Talk about this past weekend against SIU first, if you would, Coach.
I thought there was a lot of good pitching on the weekend, actually, on both sides, Shane. And I thought for our guys, for the 3 of them, that's the best they had been together. 3 starts on a weekend. So that's pretty encouraging going into the last week of the regular season in the conference tournament. Reed Metz and Trey Ziegenbein continue to give us quality innings out of the bullpen along with Garrett Ferguson. So I feel better about our pitching certainly than I did a month ago.
I wanted to ask you on the offensive side about a guy who's been out of the lineup at times, but when he's been in the lineup has been really good, and that's Cam Craddock. You know, when he's in the lineup, what does he bring to the table? What allows him to be that kind of spark?
Well, he's an older guy, Joe. He's been around. He's got the hit tool. He has feel. He has a surprising power at times. And, you know, when you're hitting that guy 7th in the order, it really stretches your lineup. And just a real good veteran presence who's had problems staying healthy at times.
Tell us a little about Brant Thompson at the front of the rotation. How much of a luxury is it to have a guy like that do what he's done this year?
Well, you never know. You know, he's a JUCO guy and came in and had a decent fall, but not great. And has really kind of continued to progress in the spring with Petrie. And, you know, he's a strike thrower, but he has quality pitches with it. Some people may underestimate him because of his size, but his fastball really works. And he's been extremely consistent. I thought for the first 4 or 5 innings against SIU on Friday, he was really good.
So 3 games left. They're all with Indiana State. I don't have to tell you what the result of a sweep would be. Is there any extra message for the players? You just let them go out and play because you know Indiana State's going to be a good club.
Win Thursday.
That's it.
That's all there is. If you want any chance at a tie for first place and the number 1 seed, got to win Thursday. And that's really what it comes down to.
I've talked to you about this before, and I think it's always been a fascinating relationship with you and Paul Evans over the years. Now he's gone. He's kind of passed the baton. You talked about Nick Petrie a little bit. How comforting is it to have 2 former players, Joey Hawkins with the position players and Nick with the pitchers, to where they know what you expect, so you don't necessarily have to inspect what you expect.
No, I think it's a huge advantage, Shane, and we have a good relationship. Those guys, you know, Nick was a 3-time All-American. Joey was a Defensive Player of the Year in the Valley. He's done a really good job with our offense, but there's the continuity, the relationships, the trust is very important to me, and I think it's worked well with those two guys.
At this point in the season, obviously, everybody wants to get hot, but everybody also wants to get healthy. How's the health overall of your club?
I think it's okay. You know, Craddock's been up and down. He's had some muscle injuries, should be ready to go down the stretch here. You know, 1 or 2 of our bullpen guys aren't 100%, but that could probably be the case with every team in the country.
And Trey Ziegenbein is one of the guys that you mentioned a little bit earlier. Last time you and I talked, you were wanting to get him right and get him settled in. Is he there yet? Knock on wood.
He is. It's been really remarkable what he's done after being hurt and missing a few weeks. He's come right back, not missed a beat, and I think he's throwing as well as he has in a couple of years.
Should be a great weekend with you guys in Indiana State. Best of luck this weekend. We'll see you in Terre Haute.
Thank you, Shane.
You bet. All right, we'll go to Murray next. Dan Skirka, Murray State. They took 1 out of 3 against Indiana State this weekend. They've got SIU coming up. Coach, if you would just kind of rewind a little bit and tell us what you saw in the Indiana State series.
One, they're fantastic club. You know, no surprise to anybody in the conference or really around the region, and now they're making their name across the country. But just, you know, really solid baseball, and we walked a couple too many guys, hit some batters, and they made us pay, and that's what good teams do. They played fantastic defense, got really good starting pitching on Saturday and Sunday, and ultimately took 2 or 3 from us.
Your club is kind of in the middle of what might be one of the toughest stretches anybody's had to deal with in conference play. Last 2 weekends, you know, Missouri State, Indiana State, and now SIU ahead of you. How have you felt like your team has competed the last 2 weekends against those top teams in the Valley as kind of a measuring stick for where they are heading to the postseason?
Yeah, you know, you want to get better as the year goes on, right? That's ultimately, you know, as a coach, you just want to be playing your best baseball, you know, come tournament time. And we feel like we have gotten better. You know, we had some guys that needed at bats, that needed innings, guys stepping into new roles, both position player and pitching. But yeah, then we run into some really good teams. So I think we're playing better. You know, we're competing at a high level. And yeah, it's a good stretch. It's a good measuring stick, that's for sure. So, but I think we are playing well. You know, just like everybody, nobody's healthy, you know, at all throughout the year or at this time of year. So you just want to play good, you know, finish strong and then be ready to go for the tournament.
How much of a luxury is it to have the rotation you have when you have Pennington and Vernon and Valero stacked one after the other? You have to feel like any given game on a weekend against any opponent, you've got a chance to go into the late innings with a chance to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. We feel confident with them, and we feel confident with our bullpen. So, you know, excited with them being healthy and them going again this weekend, and then turn it over to our bullpen. So it's a pretty good feeling as a coach.
So your first year in the Missouri Valley Conference, Dan, just your overall feelings on how tough it is week in and week out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any surprise. I've been listening to some of the calls here, and Coach Jarvis at Belmont, I think, said it, you know, very well earlier. You know, it's a dogfight every week from the top to the bottom. Well-coached teams, you know, guys running programs, doing it right, and you got to be ready to go.
And if things go just right, and you guys take care of your business against SIU, you can hop a couple of teams in the standings here in this last weekend. Everybody's so tightly bunched together, and an SIU team that lost 2 out of 3 to Missouri State. What do you expect this weekend, Coach?
Well, we've played them, and they're a fantastic team. So, you know, we're just ready for another dogfight of a weekend. You know, they got some really talented players, good coaches, and I know they'll be ready to go. They'll be hungry. We'll be ready to go, and looks like we got some good weather. So excited for it.
I asked Keith Gutton from Missouri State this just a moment ago. At this point in the season, nobody's fully healthy, but overall, how do you feel going into this weekend against SIU and beyond?
Yeah, you know, we've lost a couple guys for the season, so we haven't really had them. So stinks, just like everybody else has had to deal with it. But for the most part, yeah, we've stayed pretty consistent with our lineup and our pitching rotation.
And going back to Friday, when you hung 12 on Indiana State, they're one of the hottest teams in the country. What went well for you that weekend or that Friday, and what maybe can you duplicate this upcoming weekend in the conference tournament too?
Yeah, that's baseball. Sometimes, you're hot, you get a couple hits and it's contagious. And I think that was kind of the case. They have a really good Friday guy and we put some good swings on it, and that gives the next guy a little bit more confidence and the next guy a little bit more confidence. And we were able to string them together, had a couple fall in. And but then on Saturday, they came back and shut us out for the first time this season as an offense. So just baseball, they're a good team. They have good arms, but our offense was ready to go on Friday, and I'm proud of them for what they did.
Is there a elixir, a secret potion that as a coach you tell your players to get into tournament mode? Because we're pretty much here now.
I wish. I think that's kind of how you just lay your foundation, throughout the year. Mitch said it earlier, you never know how your team's going to respond. You never know what kind of makeup they have, but you plant those seeds, starting in the fall with the team, really in recruiting. And then you just kind of got to help them, guide them along the way. And I like where we're at. Our guys, they compete, they play hard. So, we've been battling. And like you said, this stretch we've been on is kind of tournament mode. You're playing the 1, 2, 3 teams. So I think we'll be ready to go.
Coach, best of luck this weekend against Southern, and we'll see you in Terre Haute.
Thanks, guys.
You bet. There goes Dan from Murray State. They have SIU next. Speaking of SIU, we'll go to Carbondale and talk to Lance Rhodes as the Salukis this past weekend lost 2 out of 3, I should say, to Missouri State. And the Sunday game, though, was hardly a Sunday game at all. And just goes to show, Coach, you never know with baseball, because sometimes on Sunday you have to get your hands a little dirty, but it wasn't the case. It was a pitcher's duel on Sunday, right?
It was. I think there were 6 hits on the day total. But, you look at, we threw Jake Combs, who's been throwing incredibly well for us on Sunday. They threw Eddington, who's one of the better arms in the league. He happens to go on Sunday for them too. So it wasn't a typical Sunday matchup to where, you're kind of looking at, maybe an offensive explosion, but it was very nice to see our guys respond and really just show up and be ready to play and compete after a devastating loss on Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, how much of that do you feel like is a good thing going into postseason play? Because, you get into a tournament setting, you could take a loss like that and you have to bounce back sometimes 10, 12 hours later, right? So how impressive was it to see your team do that and get what you got from Combs and then win a close game?
Yeah, I mean, I that was kind of the message to our team was, one, as we get into kind of conference tournament mode here, one, if we get back into that position again, we've really got to find a way to win that game. You can't let one of those games slip away in the conference tournament and really expect to win that thing. And 2, if for some reason we do slip up, then we've got to respond exactly the way we did on Sunday and try to make a run through that tournament. I only think that we responded the way we did is because Combs stepped out on the mound and really just dominated the way that he did. And that's what you need in conference tournament play too. You have to have pitchers step up on the mound, make big pitches, get big outs, and give your offense a chance to score runs at certain times. But we're only going to be as good as we pitch it down the stretch here.
Bit of a 2-part question here. You have now in your lineup Pierre-Olivier Boucher. You also have Mathieu Vallet. So question 1 is, have you picked up a little bit of French along the way? And then secondarily, what has allowed Vallet to kind of come on strong in Valley play and be a catalyst along with Boucher?
Yeah, no, I haven't picked up a whole lot of it. It's a different language. It's a tough one. But, I thought he was going to be a really good offensive player for us. He's got just a dynamic skill set as far as his speed. If he can make an infielder go to his left or right, he's usually going to beat that play out. Can leg outs and doubles and triples. I mean, it's game-changing speed that he has. And, we started him at the beginning of the season at the top of our order. He just kind of got off to a slow start swinging the bat, moved him down to the bottom. And then once we hit conference play, he's been one of our more consistent offensive pieces. And, I do think our offense is best when he's up at the top. So we put him back at the top on Sunday, probably try to ride him out up there at the top for a little bit. And I think it puts everybody else in the place where they need to be.
When it comes to this upcoming weekend against Murray, Coach, will you juggle your pitching staff to set it up for Terre Haute, or will you go as is?
Well, I think we're in a position one where we have to win a game. So, we're going after, the win, just like, we would be if we weren't eyeing the conference tournament the next week. Obviously we'll have to have that in the back of our mind to where, we don't go crazy with pitch counts and things like that. If we're able to get a win, on the first day or second day, obviously that kind of changes things because we're not going to be in a position to where we're moving anywhere other than in the 3 or 4. So we know what game that we would be in. So, we would start to kind of maneuver pitching once we get that win and we know we're in that spot. But, our goal is to get that bye and to be in that 3-4 game rather than have to, play on Tuesday.
Is there someone emerging out of your bullpen or maybe as a number 4 starter that you feel like, okay, we can make a deep run in the conference tournament? Because as you know, it's going to take more than just 3 starters and certainly maybe somebody you haven't counted on all year out of the bullpen.
Well, I think the difference maker is going to be Matthew Steidel, and he's had a really, really tough season overall. But if you look at his last 3 appearances, we went back, looked at some video, made some tweaks to the arm slot, and his last 3 appearances have looked exactly like what he did last season when he was potentially, up for pitcher of the year. And yeah, he's really, really thrown the ball incredibly well the last 3 times. So we are extremely excited with where he's at on the mound. It's really given us a big lift in the bullpen. And, I think he's a guy that we could extend out for a 5 or 6 inning appearance, whether we need to start him on a certain game or if we need to, get him out of the bullpen extremely early and he can, potentially run off, several innings in a row there. I think he could be a difference maker for us because it's been a little bit of a struggle for him this year in the pen, and we haven't gotten the production that we and him expected. But he's coming along strong right at the perfect time for us.
Murray State got everybody's attention on Friday when they beat Indiana State, a team that's only lost 3 times in their last 30 games. So they'll have your full attention, won't they?
Yeah, and we've played Dan and we played Murray in midweeks every single season since I've been here twice. And I don't know if he mentioned it or not, but the last 3 times we've played each other, we've gone 15 innings all 3 games. So we've had some long, tough battles over the last several years that we've played each other. And they've got a lot of balance. They can pitch, they can swing it. So obviously being on the road, it's going to be, tough, just like all Valley series are. It'll be tough to go in there and win that series. We'll have to battle our butts off. And, the biggest thing is we got to figure out a way to win and get in that bye game for the conference tournament.
Coach, best of luck this weekend. We'll see you at the conference tournament.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem. All right. Finally, Valpo's Brian Schmack joins us in a win and in situation for Valpo. They'll play Illinois State coming up this weekend. They just finished up with Belmont, took 1 out of 3. Coach, looking back on the weekend, what stood out to you?
Belmont's got pretty good pitching, that's for sure. We kind of got to them that first game, but then they did a number on us, 10-run ruleless on Saturday. And then unfortunate for us, Bean was healthy again and threw and showed why he's one of the better pitchers in the league. He was really, really good. No free bases. We had to earn everything and we didn't earn much. So really impressed by that.
Ryan Maka has emerged as a big time catalyst for you guys. What have you seen in his development and seen from him this season?
Yeah, a lot of confidence. He came on at the end of last season in conference play, especially, and we had kind of big plans for him. We knew we could take that next step, and I think we kind of had a little bit of lull there in the middle of the season, and then he just turned it on, and he's been really hot. And when he's in the lineup and doing damage to the baseball, it obviously drives us.
Bobby Nowak has transitioned from the role he's held most of his time with you guys back in bullpen to take advantage of his big arm. Now in the rotation, how have you felt like his transition has gone, and what gave you the confidence then that he could be a guy that could go from a back end role to a starting role?
Well, first on the confidence end, I mean, he has been that guy, and you kind of worry about guys that are kind of one inning, maybe high motor, high adrenaline type guy. You wonder how they're going to do when they got to throw more pitches. But just because of our situation, with the limited numbers on the staff right now, we had to throw them in that rotation. We just decided we're going to throw our best two guys. Chasey was in the same thing. I think we started those guys the same weekend. They were both doing really well at the pen, but we just said, listen, these are our best arms. We got to give them the most innings. So Bobby was good with it. He wanted to throw more, and it's worked out well so far.
Coach, last time we talked, you were in the midst or just getting done with really a killer portion of your schedule, most particularly in the midweek. You took a trip down south to kind of see what it was like in some big time atmospheres. How's your team responded since then, and basically the overall state of the union of Valpo right now, and how you see it?
I think guys are ready to go. As much as we try to sometimes hide some of the win and in type stuff, I think they're smart. They understand what's going on. So, it doesn't change the way we approach things. But I think the team, and everyone said it, everyone's, battling certain things at this time of the year. But I think the guys understand it, and they're trying to pick each other up. So it's been a collective effort, and I'm extremely proud of the guys and the way they've handled some of the adversity that we've faced. And they know every game's a dogfight. We mention it every year, and this year is no different. So I think it's exciting to be playing for something this late in the season. Traditionally, when everyone was in, we're in a certain spot, and it is what it is. But I'm looking forward to the weekend and that excitement going into this final weekend.
Have you sensed that maybe there's a little bit more of an edge, maybe not only with your players, but in teams that you play in the Valley, knowing that not everybody gets in?
Sure. Yeah. I think there's a little bit of that pressure that's there, and you could kind of sense it. It was a big weekend for Belmont as well, and I don't know what they have to do, or maybe they did it this weekend, but you can kind of sense when runs are scored, the way that the guys are responding on both benches, that they're pretty important runs. So it's exciting.
What are you gonna have to do to make a deep run if you take care of your business in Terre Haute, or should we just tap the brakes on that and let's take care of Illinois State first? I know you're a coach after all.
Yeah. It is what it is. And again, our recipe's the same. I think Sunday's game was, kind of a microcosm. And Bobby was in the sixth inning. He had no hits, but he also had 7 walks, and I think we hit a guy. So, you play with fire, you're going to get burned, and that's exactly what happened. So if we're going to make any kind of a run, we just have to compete and throw the baseball over the plate. The free bases will not help us at all. We're just not deep enough to overcome that. So it's the message this whole season. It's the message this weekend, and it will be moving forward if there is one.
And we've talked about that, I think, in the past too. It's an easy concept on paper, but there's a fine line that you have to walk with your pitching staff. It's like, when you throw the ball over the plate, we're in good shape. When does that get to be a thing between the ears with your coaches or with your players on the mound saying, I got to throw strikes, I can't be walking people?
Yeah, and that's kind of that line you have to tiptoe, where you don't want to, the pink elephant type situation. You don't want to talk about it too much, but I think it's just the way you approach your business all the time. And you just know that, hey, I'm a competitor. I'm going after these guys. Here's my stuff. Hit it if you can. Some days it works out, some it doesn't, and you just have to play the long game. So it's not something we're going to, hey guys, this weekend we really have to throw the strikes. I mean, it's always been talked about. It's just whether it can be accomplished. So the days we're good, it's accomplished. The days we're not, usually it isn't. So.
Coach, good catching up as always. Best of luck this weekend against Illinois State.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, that's another roundtable edition of the Rawlings MVC First Pitch. Hope to see all of you out in Terre Haute, the conference tournament hosted by Indiana State in 2023.